What's the difference between an independent contractor and an employee? The IRS has listed out 3 key factors to determine whether somebody is an independent contractor, an IC, or an employee. They are financial, behavioral, and nature of the relationship. Financial asks whether the worker is solely depending on the business for their income. Behavioral looks at who has control over the worker, and nature of the relationship looks at the types of contracts or agreements between the business and the worker, and whether or not the worker is a key part of the business, and also if there are any employee-like type benefits being offered, such as vacation or sick pay. Ultimately, you want to look at how much control the business has over the worker. With an independent contractor, you have control over the final product, but not how the work is done. With an employee, you have control over the final product and the entire process of completing that work. Let's use the example of making a cake. If you were working with an independent contractor, you would go to them and you would say, I want a chocolate cake with chocolate frosting that says, welcome to the business in 2 weeks. You would then leave them to go make that cake. You have control over the final product, but not how they make it. If you were to use an employee, you would go to them and say the same thing, but you would have full control. You could tell them the recipe to use, what time of day to make that cake, and exactly what you wanted. And they would have to do that because they are your employee and you have control over them. So you don't have control over the independent contractor, but you do have control over the employee. And it's important to make sure that you classify an IC or an employee. If you misclassify a worker, the IRS can come after you, and you could owe a lot of back taxes and pay fines and penalties on top of that. Working with a good attorney will help you determine whether or not your workers are independent contractors or employees.